How could Paris regain such a high cultural standing so soon after the war? Germany was in eclipse. Russian and Eastern European cultural life devastated. Spain isolated by General Franco's regime. Italy busy recovering from a generation of fascism. And Britain as marginal as ever to European intellectual debates. To paraphrase the Anglo-American historian Tony Judd, despite France's own relative decline, Paris's voice mattered more during the decade after the war than it had at any time since 1815, the peak of Napoleonic grandeur. Together, in Paris, our band of brothers and sisters created new codes. They founded the New Journalism, which got its official name a decade later but was born then in the smoky hotel rooms of the left bank and forever blurred the lines between literature and reportage. Poets and playwrights slowly buried surrealism and invented the theater of the absurd. Budding painters transcended socialist realism, pushed geometric abstraction to its limits, and fostered action painting. Philosophers founded new schools of thought such as Existentialism while setting up political parties. Aspiring writers found their voices in Paris's gutters and the decrepit student rooms of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, while others invented the nouveau roman. Photographers reclaimed their authorship through photojournalism agencies such as Magnum. Censored American writers such as Henry Miller published their work first in French. Black jazz musicians, fleeing segregation at home, found consecration in the concert halls and jazz clubs of Paris, where New Orleans jazz received its long overdue appreciation while bebop was bubbling up. Some in the Catholic Church experimented with Marxism, while a colorist and former art gallery owner turned couturier named Christian Dior intoxicated the world with the new look in fashion design. After 1944, everything was political. There was no escape. World citizens of the left bank knew this, and they did all they could to question both U.S. policies and the Communist Party's views. Paris was for them both a refuge and a bridge to think in a different way. They opened up the possibility of a third way, ardently embracing the idealism of the United Nations and the glimmer of utopia in what would later become the European Union. Those pioneers also reinvented their relationships to others. They questioned, shook, and often rejected the institutions of marriage and family and adopted polyamory as an ambition in life. They campaigned for the right to abortion 30 years before it was legalized and consumed drugs, cigarettes, and alcohol with passion. Their heightened sexuality proved an inherent part of their creativity and permeated everything they did. They also proved, with only a few exceptions, to be very hard workers, workaholics even. They worked hard and played hard. Women took on a central role. The Mona Lisa's return to the Louvre after 6 years of hiding during the war heralded a new era in which Elle magazine was founded and edited by 29-year-old Françoise Giroud, who would become a government minister exactly 29 years later. As Colette, the grande dame of French literature, passed away, so did the figure of the demi-mondaine. Bardot and Beauvoir became the two new faces of feminism to whom the world would soon surrender. In this predominantly male environment, only very strong women survived and made a mark. You had to be pugnacious in those years if you wanted to exist as an individual and not just as the escort of a great man. Women who refused to be just wives or mistresses, more often than not exploited by their famous and unfaithful other halves, were almost all bisexual and female Don Juans. Some were even on the quest for a third way into sex, as in politics. The New Yorker's Paris correspondent Janet Flanner, who signed all her articles with the pseudonym Genet, known before the war for her